All right. So there's two things I'm gonna show real quick before we get started. So I have an add-on, right? So I got Retopoflow add-on. I actually got it on sale. I think in the bundle, I think it was like $5 at the time. But if you were to buy this today, last I checked, it was around $80 to get this add-on. So I'm going to be using that, but I will very quickly kind of show you guys how to set up Retopology in Blender natively. So first thing you're going to do is you want to make sure you kind of come into here and you just add a plane, right? So right here, it'll start on the 3D cursor working. So now what I'm going to do is very quickly is I'm actually going to change this because it started in the wrong spot. So we're going to set that to 0. And we just want to make sure everything's reset for when you're retopologizing so that all your mirror modifiers work. And I'm going to jump into edit mode. So now I'll be able to move it and there won't be any issues. There we go. There we go. That's better. So now what you're going to do is you just want to come into your snapping, turn that on. You want to turn it on to face project. I believe it was. And then over here, you want to add a shrink wrap modifier. And you want to make sure it has your dragon's body selected. So once you do that, then you'll notice that the mesh here, you can see it automatically projects onto the dragon. Now you can see that the edit mode is separate from the actual mesh here. So what you want to do is you just want to turn on this cage, how it says on cage. That way you can actually see what it's looking like, right? And kind of go like that. That way it doesn't confuse you, because if you turn this off, then you can see you've got a bunch of weird stuff if you're not careful. It feels weird. So I always turn that on. And then what I like to do is I like to also add a mirror modifier and make sure clipping is turned on. That way you don't have to go both sides twice. Like you don't have to go on the right side, then you don't have to go on the left side. And then from there, you want to make sure you can see it better, because you can see here with all of our little details and with this low poly, then it is hard to see sometimes. And I'm going to change this to, I'm going to come to this little object settings here, like this orange square, open up the visibility, and oh, whoops, wrong one, I lied. It is in viewport display. And I'm just going to turn on in front, right? So now anything you do, and as you do your retopology, then you'll always be able to see what you're doing. And right there, you're basically done. Alrighty, so here we are. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and get started. Now, to do it with the Retopoflow add-on, you just have to do Shift A. So select the object you want to retopologize, which is the face here. And you just do Shift A, go into Mesh, and you do Retopology from Active. So you see how it says right here, sorry, Dragon Main Body Retopology. Right, so this automatically gets created with the Retopoflow add-on. And all I have to do is kind of come over here. So I'm just going to say poly strips, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of hold control, and I'm just going to draw on top of it like this. I think I heard someone get back. You're back. Yes, you are.
Yeah, I am back.
Yeah, guys. So this is Lolita. I told you about her. But yeah. So
I'm Golita, Girl Go. You can call me Golita for short. Or like yeah, but yeah. So I Golita for short, basically. I don't know how to say the last other two. Normally just Golita. But
Golita.
yeah.
So, but yeah. So this is Golita, guys. Yeah, so now let's go ahead and get started with the retopologizing. So I am going to go ahead and say retopology from active. And the atom's gonna take a second, and there we go. It is done. So I am going to save real quick. And we're gonna give it a second to save, because once again, if you guys remember in the last video, we've got about, I think, 20 million polygons. So this is a very heavy mesh here. And so you want to be careful each time you do any major step to make sure you save it. Otherwise, unless you've got a strong computer, it will crash. So we're just going to go ahead and retopologize. Now, for those of you guys who aren't as familiar with 3D, and Lolita would be one of them, then the reason why we do, so what retopology is going to do is it's essentially a way to optimize and downsize the mesh, but while also making so that your animation, like the movement of your characters, are still good and still work. So that means that as we go through our retopologizing, we need to isolate our points of movement and base our edge loops around those points. So if I come down here, so I'm going to turn on this contours tool, and that's just for sort of cylindrical shapes. It's really good for arms and legs. So I'm just going to come across here, and we're going to add a loop here. And I'm going to add another loop right here. So you can see here, we have our first edge loop. And then you'd want to kind of add another edge loop, a couple of them right here, kind of going around. Right now you're just trying to build an outline of the character, and then we can do our optimizing and tweaking later as we work. We've got a problem, right? So what's happening is we got a bunch of geometry over here, but we don't have any over here. And so I just want to make sure that we kind of keep our polygons balanced. We don't want our polygons stretched too far in one direction. So basically, the way you got to think about it is you want a bunch of squares. You don't want a bunch of weird shapes going across like this, right? Yeah, and at this point, you know that this is really kind of the gist of what you're looking at in a lot of cases. You're kind of just going through, and you're essentially tracing over the character you just sculpted, right? But in much low poly, a much more low poly situation than before.
I got a question.
What's that?
Your like models, do you normally like color them in, or do you just leave them as they are?
Oh, yeah. So we'll be texturing. So what? Yeah. So the process of doing 3D. So first thing, what you do is you sculpt it, and you kind of get the form there, and then what you do is you retopologize, and then you texture. And that's just a optimization thing. Basically, if I try to like color on top of this, basically there's a lot of stretching, and the color just looks terrible. Yeah, you've drawn before, right?
I have, but only with like pencil, pen, and on computer. So like not like 3D drawing per se, kind of like this. But this would probably be like a challenge for me.
Okay. So now that we're here and we've got all of our main loops, right? We've got our legs here. We've got our tail. Now I've left the wings undone for now, just because they are a little bit different. Like the whole thing has to be able to move, and so you can't do it quite as easy as you can some of the other stuff. But we'll get to that when the time comes. So if we come here, and I've got this face here, right? We want to identify the specific movement. Now to start with, if I draw on top of here, that is way too dense, right? You don't want that much polygons in the same spot. So I'm just going to zoom out so that it's not as heavy. Yeah, that's better. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That can work. Yeah, I think I like that. So we'll do 6. And that's, let's see, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right? And I like to try to keep it around 8. So that's 7. And then this last one should be 8. Yep. And then what you want to make sure you do is you want it to follow the eye here, right? So I'm going to choose this one as the center here, and I'm just going to put it right here, right? And you're just gonna go through, and this is going to be the edge of the eye, right? The very tip of the eye here, but just before you get to your eyelids, if that makes sense. So we're just gonna kind of come in here, and we're trying to kind of form up, if that makes sense. And the reason why I'm being particular about this part is it's kind of a mixture of a form pass and just a loop pass, because essentially wherever you have these edge loops, right, you see this edge loop that going around, and even on the inside, wherever you have those edge loops, then that is where the majority of your form and your contours will be maintained, as far as the actual structure of the character itself. And so whenever you have a really, really high contrast, like this plane change right here, that is super, super obvious and it needs to be emphasized even on a low poly, then you want to make sure you have an edge loop that follows that contour, right? That kind of comes around like this. And if I select this edge loop, right, and I do extrude, and I just scale it in, right? And I bring this in, you can already see, if I go here, you can see some of that shape is maintained, right? Now what I'm going to do is on this second loop, I'm going to treat it as the very front of this eyelid, right? Because once again, one mistake that I've made plenty of times, when you're making eyelids, you make them way too thin because you feel like, oh man, they're eyelids, they're not that thick, right? But no, they are. And as always, right, you always want to zoom out and just realize how small that eyelid actually is, and it only looks big because we're zoomed in on it. And we've got our eye here, right? So even right here, right, you can see the low poly. Oh, now you can see the low poly. You guys can see the low poly, and you see the eye, right? Obviously it's much lower quality, but the fact that even at this low poly here, that you can see the eye and you can tell that it's an eye, is exactly what you're looking for. Now what I'm going to do, so instead of walking you guys through every single step and every single polygon that I place for the rest of the face, I'm going to just kind of like outline a lot of the main shapes that you're going to have. And that's just because it's a lot of what I just did with the eye. It's kind of just placing a bunch of dots everywhere and adjusting each one manually. So the main loops that you're going to look at is you're going to look at the mouth, because obviously the mouth is going to be moving, and then you want a main loop that comes around the entire face. And in this case, the nice thing about it is we kind of already have something that will make it easy for us, and that's these horns. So we can kind of just do a loop that kind of comes from the top here, and let's say it starts from the center, right? If I kind of go like this, yeah, there we go, perfect. And I come around like this and just come down around the face, and this will be the jawline essentially. So it needs to come down and around across like this. We've got one additional loop that we want to do, and this one is really, you might say, unique to this particular creature, and that is going to be this eye, this eyebrow, this really thick eyebrow. If we want it to be able to move up and down, we want to make sure that we define this eyebrow. But yeah, so that is our first retopology pass. We've got our legs, we've got our tail, we have our neck loops in. So once we're completely done with the face here, we'll be able to kind of tie all this in. But once again, you can see already, even though it is fairly dense in the areas that we have, like the face. If you look at our vertices again, right now I am down to 706 vertices in this object, right? I've got 700 vertices. Now if I go out and I left click our dragon here, it has 15 million vertices. Now I'm nowhere near done, and more than likely I'm going to add a subdivision surface on here to help with some of the low poly feel that you see, right? You can already see how much of a difference that makes if I turn it off then on. Just having that extra geometry in there really helps to define it there. So anyways, I've kind of rambled on a little bit more than I probably should have on this part, but yeah, so I think that'll be it for this video, and I will see all of you guys in the next one. So you guys might have heard another person in this video. So this is her YouTube channel. Going forward, me and her will be doing a little bit of collaboration videos together. So go ahead and check out her channel. Get subscribed, give her a like, you know, comment on some of her videos, and show her some support. But yeah, after that, I believe that's it for me in this video, and I will see you guys in the next one.